Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. It's Friday. Happy Friday. I hope you're all happy and healthy. Please do me a favor, guys. Smash the like button if you enjoy this video like you always do. The like game is incredible on this channel. I'm so grateful for your support. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. We are on the march to 40k. It's a slow slog, but we're trying to get there. Hit the notification bell. Give it a little squeeze and drop a comment or two. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. There's a couple of topics about transfer news, views, and clues that I want to get through. Shouldn't take up too much time, but I do want to show you a little bit of data to validate a point that I think a lot of Tottenham fans have been making regarding our midfield. There's also a transfer news, views, and clues about a story coming out of Real Sociedad that, look, the player in question is a phenomenal player, a fantastic player. I personally have question marks around his viability in the Premier League, given that sort of shift towards physicality and athleticism and strength, bigger, faster, stronger, that kind of thing. It's sort of as an inverse to the traditional narrative of technicality beats physicality, like it was seen in previous seasons in recent years. Maybe this trend won't last forever. After that, I need to pivot to a story out of the boot room regarding a big sponsorship update that might end up with a £500 million deal for Tottenham. We have been speaking and hearing about this ever since Daniel Levy's departure. So it might be a long video, but please do take your time with it and give it the full gamut of your attention, and then let me know your thoughts on it. Let's start with the stories out of on Twitter fame this morning. There's an exclusive coming from a guy called Chris FT, who has sort of positioned himself a little bit of an ITK. I never know whether these guys are on it or not, but some people say these guys are frauds. Others say that they're bang on. I never know. But the first story is that he is saying, I'll bring it up on the screen for you, that he's saying that Pedro Porro is in talks for a new long-term deal at Tottenham Hotspur until 2030. His current deal runs until 2028, but Tottenham plan to offer an extension until June 2030, with a potential option to extend until June 31. Tottenham Hotspur highly rate Pedro Porro and want to secure his future as a key part of their long-term project as soon as possible, with talks scheduled for next week to start official negotiations. Important clubs such as Madrid, City, etc. have shown strong interest in the past 18 months, but Tottenham are determined to keep him and avoid any future approach. Talks are expected to take place soon. Look, sometimes signing players on longer term contracts, locking them down, is as important as although sometimes less interesting maybe to fans, as the who's the next name that might make us better, that might take us to the next level. But Pedro Porro, for me, is a phenomenal footballer. When he plays well, I think Tottenham play better. When he doesn't play well, I think Tottenham really struggle, especially this season in the creative department. He's had a couple of stinkers in the last couple of games before the game against Copenhagen. But me personally, I absolutely adore the guy. I think his stamina is unbelievable. His body just seems to be unbreakable. And he's become an ever-present part in our team. I think he played something like 900 minutes more football than anybody else in the Tottenham team last season. I could be wrong about that stat. And if you look at the other stats that are out there with regards his contribution, I think he's been involved in more defensive duels and take-ons than any other fullback in the Premier League. That might be as a consequence just generally of the fact that most teams like to think that they have a better chance of getting at our backline via their left wing down our right-hand side. But I think he's won more, like he might have also lost a few more duels or whatever, but he certainly won more of those tackles and duels and take-ons than I think most other fullbacks. And in terms of his passing stats, I think he's number one, not just in the Premier League, but across in Europe, I think, for comparative progressions, crosses converted, all these sorts of things relative to other fullbacks in the game. So I love him. I think he's an absolute character. I'm pretty sure I heard him say recently in an interview that he's very, very happy at Tottenham and he's fully focused on the project here. And, it's good news. It's really good news. I really do like him. And I do think that a lot of the football clubs that maybe have, gone down a similar path with or looking for a similar sort of profile, they may have gone in different directions and haven't necessarily been happy with the solutions that they've gone for so far. And so I do think there's a chance that if we don't lock him down, that a really big club might come calling. And so to get him to sort of commit to us right now, take that kind of risk out of the equation, I think would be logical. At the same time, of course, we are also trying to lock down Micky van der Ven. Apparently, stories that are ongoing around Tottenham trying to offer him I'm not necessarily an extension to his deal because he's already on a 5+1 and he's only 1 or 2 years into that. But just to kind of recognise his contribution and his efforts, and obviously, again, try to get the commitment from him that he wouldn't leave us or wouldn't be upset if we, overpriced his worth if a big club like a Real Madrid came calling, and I'm sure they will if he carries on doing the things he does. So it is important. It's not necessarily exciting news to some, but I think it's actually just as important sometimes as going through all of the potential transfer news, views, and clues. In that regard, though, on that note, let's talk a little bit about Takefusa Kubo, the unbelievable right winger out of Japan, plays for Real Sociedad. I say right winger. He's played. I think in his career he's played about 300 games, give or take. In professional football, 150 of them, about half of them have been as a right winger. In fact, I'll bring the stats up on the screen so I can show you. About 150 of them have been as a right winger. And then the rest is spread around. There's a second striker, an attacking midfielder, a left winger, a right midfielder, a centre forward. He's played minutes in all of them. Obviously, the best output, 43 GA from 150. That's about, give or take, 1 in every 3 games. He's contributing a goal or an assist at the Spanish level. And you have to remember, right, for me, as much as I think this player is a fantastic player, like he really is. He's technical, he's fast, he's got a powerful shot for a little fella, and he's got that kind of depth of touch and also the ability, the low center of gravity to sort of juke in and out of fullbacks that are trying to take him on. He's very accomplished at doing what he does, but he's doing it in a league that allows more time in that regard and is more technical by its nature. And as I say, even the version of the Premier League a couple of years ago that had more impetus on those sorts of players being in and amongst a mixed kind of profile within a squad. I think the shift in the last couple of years towards just bigger, stronger, faster, I'm not entirely sure if that is a trend that's going to suit him. And it's a lot of money. Apparently 60 million euros is the asking price, but Tottenham apparently are looking at him closely and are interested in the signing the player. The other concern for me, not just around his stature or what he can offer, which again he's very good at, is just the fact that he's a right winger predominantly, and we already have Mohamed Kudus. And listen, I'm not by any stretch of the imagination thinking that we can rest on our laurels with just one sort of proper take-on guy in our forward line. We obviously need to get to a position like Arsenal do at some point where they have 4 or 5 different wingers that can all do a little bit of that, but also a bit of other things, and then they can just make up different profiles and have that incredible depth. We're not there yet, but I think before you start adding and taking massive chunks of your own, your sort of relatively precious transfer budget to find depth in one position, that's great. But I think before you do that, you have to fix your, the obvious weaknesses, the obvious vulnerabilities in the team that exist where there is no depth or there is no variety in the profile. So obviously a left winger, some people would argue that a striker is important, especially as we don't know, first of all, if Kolo Muani is going to cut it. I think he will. But and how long he's here for? There's no option or obligation on Kolo Muani. To me, I think he's just here for a season, unless something was to seriously manifest in his enjoyment of life in the club and at Tottenham and in London, etc. And obviously, then you have to then go back to the relationship with PSG to figure out the right price. The relationship that Tottenham and PSG have apparently was always between the friends of the PSG owner and Daniel Levy. And so Daniel Levy's out the door. Does that mean it's more difficult? I'm not sure. But either way, we definitely need to figure out potentially a long-term striker solution that's better than Richarlison and better than Solanke. I know people are calling for Dane Scarlett to be given more of a chance. And listen, Dane Scarlett's never let himself down. And for me, in a Tottenham shirt, but obviously I think Tottenham fans would love to see a striker and obviously a left winger to kind of give that more balance. But what I would also say is a midfield solution, a better passer, a better all-round box-to-box player is clearly important. And I want to pivot to this data MB to show you the rationale as to why. We spoke about this on Spurs 5 last night. So I've got all of the mainstay for the 4 players. I haven't included Archie Gray. For some reason, he's not included on the list of midfielders on data MB. But I've got Polinia, Pape Sarr, Berghvall and Bentancur in here. And I think that one of the things we've all come to recognise is the lack of ability to progress the ball, forward passes, progressive passes into the final third. And I think you can see it right here. Like this is this scale, for those who don't understand, the outer ring there is 100 percentile. So if you are on the very outer ring, something like this one here, the guy who sits in yellow, João Palhinha, obviously, in terms of duels, percentage of duels won, that is, then he is the very best, or very close to being the very best at percentage duels won relative to all other midfielders in the Premier League. I think this is in European, in the top 5 leagues. And the closer you are to the center of the circle means you're at the 100% or the first percentile, as in like you're one of the weakest at that discipline. And I think that this sort of story, this data sort of shows its own discipline here. Like the argument is that Bentancur is better than the rest at progressing the ball. Statistically, data-wise, that's true. You can see it. He's the blue. Bentancur is the blue. He is about the 25th percentile, something like that, in terms of relative to all other midfielders at progressive passes. Everybody else is weaker than that. And so he's the best of a bad bunch at this particular discipline. I think Bentancur is just slightly better than the man in the green, who's Pape Sarr. And then obviously you have Lucas Berghvall, who is who's the weakest of them all. He's about the 7th or 8th percentage. Now, Lucas Berghvall does create passes that do lead to shots. That's what a key pass is. In terms of forward passes, again, right down the bottom. And so that's forward pass percentage completion. So when he does try it, he's often giving the ball away. And this is also where he's poor at delivering forward passes. At carrying, Lucas Berghvall is the best of what we have. So if you're looking for a different profile, then you can see that we have, in Palhinha, you have a defensive-minded player that's very, very good at doing those sorts of things. In Lucas Berghvall, we have a guy who is pretty good at winning the ball back in duels and in interceptions and those sorts of things, and then he likes to carry the ball. With Pape Sarr, you have a guy who, when he does promote the ball forward, his actual pass completion ratio is far better than anybody else in the team. But it's still not really acceptable. And so I think that the idea that we need a different profile of player is, I think it's agreeable to basically everybody in the fan base that I see on a day-to-day basis. I just want to bring in a couple of people here that we could go after in hopefully in January. Now you've got Manuel Locatelli, who is a player that plays for Juventus, who might be looking to leave and move on to pastures new. And of course, we have the relationship there with Fabio Paratici that he might be able to access. Now Locatelli's in the blue again, so there's a bit of an overlap between that blue and Bentancur's blue. But I think you can just see his the big one. Right, this is Locatelli. Progressive passes. He's in the 100th percentile, 99th percentile. Right, so he's progressing the ball more appropriately and more quickly than anybody else. He's also very, very good when he gets stuck into duels. So he's a bit of an all-rounder. He's a box-to-box player that defensively can get stuck in. And when he does get stuck in defensively, he comes away with the ball or wins that duel almost as to a higher frequency as someone like João Palhinha. Again, possession one in the duels, right? He comes away, he wins the duels, and he comes away with the ball. He's not bad at carrying either. He's just as good as Lucas Berghvall at carrying the ball forward. And his forward passing is absolutely sensational. And when he does progress the ball forward, he does it successfully about 90% of the time, which is more successful than anybody else in a Tottenham team. The only thing he doesn't do as well as other players in the team is pass the ball to a player that then that move leads to a shot, essentially. This is the sort of the dream world diamond that you could have. If you bring in someone like a Locatelli, he's worth his weight in gold because he does all of the things that you need defensively plus progressively. He can be that catalyst for movements in games where we currently feel like we don't have that ball winner that can then do the things to get the ball moving up to the front guys as well as the other guys do. He is the sort of profile that we need. The obviously question marks around whether his transition, assimilation, acclimation into the Premier League would be a success has to be asked, and so there might be question marks about that. But that's the sort of profile that Tottenham Hotspur need to be going after. Just as a point of comparison, I just want to show you a player because if you are looking for someone, there's a lot of people that say, we need Prem-proven players. Well, there's a guy at a team that is really struggling, and that is João Gomez. Used to play as a 6, João Gomez, before Andre came in, and now has been progressed into the 8. Most of you will be familiar with how he decimated us in the 2-0 loss at home a couple of seasons ago. An absolutely wonderful player. And as much as I want to sit there and find a reason to think that Locatelli is the obvious option and the only option to go for. I do think that there are question fact that you can't really see a lot of these over the top of each other. Let me get rid of some of these Pape Sarr and Berghvall for a minute and Bentancur. Let me get rid of these two. And I'll just show you. This is João Gomez that's doing a very similar job. Okay, not to the same levels as a Locatelli, but he's doing it in a Wolves team that is on the back foot, the bottom of the table. Bottom of the table this season. This is 25-26 statistics, right? So obviously it's a fairly small sample size. I can overlay in the 24-25 columns as well if we wanted to, but just for the sake of the argument that they don't look too dissimilar. But this is in a Wolves team that is struggling, that has had a horrendous start to the season, both in the schedule that they've been playing and in the results and the performances that the team have put in. But João Gomez for me is a player that can do all of the things and is proven in the physical stature, and in the kind of the tests, if you like, that the Premier League presents, that there are unknowns regarding whether Locatelli would transition. I'm sure Locatelli will be absolutely fine. I think he's an absolutely a sensational player. I don't know whether Locatelli would want to come to Tottenham. He might do. I don't know whether Juventus would sell him. But I think Wolverhampton Wanderers are probably going to have to face the reality that they're in a relegation battle. Now, that might eventuate in a situation where they don't want to sell under any circumstances one of their best players in January. But should they go down, should they be relegated, then he would absolutely need to leave Wolverhampton Wanderers next summer. There's no way he goes down to the Championship. And this might be a player that I think Tottenham Hotspur can get basically exactly the same type of thing. Maybe just a little bit dialed down on a Locatelli, but ultimately he's very, very good in all of those disciplines. Possessions won and duels, again, relatively high percentages. Progressive passes, okay, he's not in the 99th percentile, but nobody's going to be as good as Locatelli in that regard across the 5 leagues. But being where he is, João Gomez, and doing it in a team that doesn't have the opportunity to be progressing the ball as much as they would otherwise like if they weren't playing as bad football as they currently are, then I think you can hopefully see that put him in a team that plays more possession-based football, that wants to be a bit more creative and that doesn't have to sit on the back foot all of the time as they currently are at Wolves, then I think these numbers could be dialed up. To me, I think that João Gomez is a relatively reasonable story to go after. And I also think it's a relatively risk-free transfer. I think the player is sensational. I think it was 2 summers ago, I put out a video saying the top 10 DMs that Tottenham, or top 10 midfielders with a defensive slant that Tottenham should be going after. And João Gomez is on the list. Now, since then, he's been progressed into more of a box-to-box 8 player, and he's very, very good at doing that as well. So I think that Tottenham could be looking for a profile like João Gomez. I think he would be a sensation. Guys, I've been going for 18 minutes, and I haven't even got to the story about the TBR. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave this one here. Get your thoughts. Please do drop a like, drop a subscribe. All of these videos, by the way, are uploaded to Spotify. So if ever you want to watch it when you're out walking on your way to work or whatever, then please do follow me on Spotify and Apple Pods and Amazon and all that stuff. Links in the description, or just search for Spurs Talk Show. But I'll leave this video here. I want to get your thoughts on this one. And then right after this, I'm going to record the TBR story because it's probably quite a long one as well about the £500 million potential investment for sponsorships. And I will drop that in a couple of hours for some Friday afternoon viewing for you. Let me know your thoughts, guys. I appreciate all of you, and have a good day. And let's look forward to an early start tomorrow because Tottenham are hosting Manchester United. Are we going to make it 5 on the bounce? Let's hope so. Like, subscribe, and comment, guys. And as always,